Hello everybody, just wanted to make a quick video on how to practice comparing fractions. We have, it's called roll and compare. There's different ways you can play this. You can play with a deck of cards as well, but we're just going to do it with dice. So you need 2 die, 6-sided work best to start. If you want to get into larger dice, you can work with 10-sided die or 12-sided die once you get into heavier or larger fractions. But with 6-sided die, that's good enough for what we're doing in class right now. They are comparing fractions. So how do we do this? The first thing we're going to do is set up our benchmarks. Our benchmarks are going to be half and whole, and then it's good to also put in, sometimes you can put in your quarter benchmarks. So right in between half, you'll have 1/4, and then you'll have your 3/4 here. Those are usually our benchmarks that we work with to help us out, and then we can just use our fraction strips also, which they have and we'll be taking home with them, and I have them in a little envelope that they can take home and practice. But what you do is you roll, you take the large or smaller number as the numerator and the larger number as your denominator, and then you write it in. So that would be 2 6. Okay, and then you roll again, and then we do our smaller number as the numerator, larger number as the denominator, and that is going to be 3/4. So then we compare what these are. The first thing we can do is we'll just try and do it without any assistance by looking at our benchmarks. Well, we know that 3/4 is this side, so it's way over here, and 2 6. So if we were to just look at this number line and look at it in 6, cut it up into 6 places, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd know that 2 6 is probably actually less than half. So right off the hop, just even comparing it to half, 3/4 is greater than half, 2 6 is smaller than half. Therefore, I know that 3/4 is larger. That being said, if they don't have that thinking quite yet, or they're not using the half benchmarks, I did provide everyone with these little fraction strips. So we have 2 1/6 pieces, which is approximately there, and then we have 3/4. So we have a quarter here, and a quarter there, and right off the hop I can see that 2/4 is bigger, and then I have to find the other quarter. There it is. That's 3/4. So in this way I can clearly see that 3/4 is larger than 2 6, and I can make that comparison. Try again. So I have 2/3. So I'm going to look at this and write down 2/3. Go again, and then I have 5/5. So 5/5. Okay. So right off the hop, I'm going to compare them to half. 2/3 is larger than half, and 5/5 is larger than half. This one I know already is going to be a whole, which is the largest you can possibly get. So therefore, 5/5 wins. Now, if it comes down to not knowing, take your 2/3, pop it on there, and then you can take your 5/5, which is equivalent to 1/1, or you can take your 5. I just don't have them out. I have 1/5 here, but I'd have to dig into the other place and stack them up to realize that it's as large as 1, or 5/5 is 1 whole. Clearly, 5/5 is larger than 2/3. So we're just working on comparing them, and they will be sent home with this. So they have all their fraction strips in here to just verify and ensure that they are correct. And I will send home a roll and compare sheet. I'm hoping that you all have dice at home so they don't have to take mine home and possibly lose them. But if they need to, they can take my dice home as long as they return them. Anyways, this is how you play roll and compare. If you're looking for variations of the game, you could also do cards where you can just flip and compare, and then put, so that'd be 2/4, and then you can compare it with 3/4. Well, 3/4 are obviously larger than 2/4. All right, so have fun playing.